Hey everybody, Jane here, and we are going to do my biggest disappointment reads of 2024. So these are books that I didn't necessarily think were bad, I didn't necessarily rate them low, they were just books that I had really high expectations for going in, and these books ended up letting me down. I have 5 on this list, but I also have 1 honorable mention. So if these are your favorite books, I'm so sorry. This is my personal preferences. It doesn't mean they're bad. It just meant that I was expecting one thing and got something a little bit different and was a little bit disappointed. So let's start with my honorable mention on this list, and that is The Lost Apothecary. This book is about a woman who owns an apothecary shop where people can get poisons women can get poisons to poison the men in their lives. And that sounds like an amazing premise, but for me, it fell a little bit flat on the rest of the story. There is a dual timeline, and I thought the one timeline wasn't really necessary. I felt it was a little bit slow. I kind of hyped it up. It's such a cool premise and concept. And at the end of the day, I was just a little bit let down by it. It really wasn't what I was hoping for. My next book on this list is A Wolf in Duke's Clothing. This book was supposed to be a historical werewolf, and that is something I want so bad. I write historical paranormal, and to have this idea of this, Regency romance, but with werewolves, I wanted that so bad. I was so excited to pick this book up. I actually, even though I'd never read any of the books in the series, I bought all 3 books in the series thinking, how bad could this be? Bad enough that I didn't end up reading any but the first, and I've unhauled them all. So here's my issue with this. I think the story was fine, but the author ended up writing it in a language that was a little bit too flowery, that was a little bit too trying to be appropriate to the time, and it was almost unreadable in parts for me. And I read a lot of historical romance, so I'm not really sure what happened there, but I was so excited. I thought this was going to be a new favorite, and it just wasn't. And I didn't finish the series, and I was so bummed because I think the stories themselves were probably pretty great. And the one story I was enjoying, but the writing I couldn't. I couldn't. So I was very disappointed because I thought this was going to be a new favorite. The next one on this list is one that I had heard so much about from Book Talk. And while I didn't think this book was bad, I definitely expected it to be a little bit better based on how much everybody else seems to love it. And that is Icebreaker. So I read Icebreaker recently as part of a vlog I'm doing to read sports romance. That probably won't be out by the time you see this video, but it's coming out eventually once I finish reading the books for it. Icebreaker wasn't bad. It had some really great things. It had some fun characters. It had some great discussions about adoption. It had some great discussion about it had some great friendships. It had some great discussion about competition and health and all kinds of stuff. But at the end of the day, it was mostly a very long book. It's about, I guess I should tell you what it's about. It is about this girl who is a skater, an Olympic skater, ice skater. And her skating partner is injured and can't train with her anymore. And the leader of the hockey team is blamed on it. So he goes to help her train so that she doesn't lose her spot in the Olympics by not having a partner to train with. So he helps her train and they fall in love. And this book, it did some things very, very well. And I wished it did everything well because I really liked it enough, plot and characters, that I wanted to pick up the sequel. But the way it was written, I just knew that it would just irritate me and I couldn't continue. So there is a lot of intimate scenes, but they're not particularly good intimate scenes. They don't do very much for the story. and they felt very wham bam thank you ma'am to me. And I'm like, if I'm reading an intimate scene, I either want it to do something cool or I want it to, you know, be meaningful and important to the story. And this was just people doing it like bunnies for no reason, and it's not even very good. It doesn't even, make you hot under the collar. It's just there. So I was very disappointed with that. I was very disappointed with the pacing. I was very disappointed with some other things in it. And I just, for all the hype around it, I was expecting something a little bit better, and I didn't get that. So that is why that one was a big disappointment. The next one on my list is Next of Kin. This book is about a girl who is trying to get custody of her sister. Her sister's in foster care and she's trying to get custody. And there is she doesn't have a steady income. And so they team her up with a guy who needs housing. She has good housing, but not enough income or something like that. And the guy has no good housing, but great income. And so they're like, we'll team you up and you guys can live in this house together. He's trying to get custody of his brother. You're trying to get custody of your sister. You can like co-parent and each make up for what you're lacking for a year or whatever until you can get on your feet. I was so excited to read this book because I had just read Out on a Limb, which was by the same author, and it was a 5-star and I loved it. And I was like thinking, oh, this is an author that I'm going to be reading to zero because I loved her stuff. This book did not at all work for me. And the things that I loved in the other book weren't really present in this. And I know they're different books and different stories, and I could see where some of it was not the same, but it didn't even feel sometimes like it was the same author. And after reading this, I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to read that author to zero because this was not great. And there was particularly a situation where the guy has some anger problems, and I didn't feel by the end of the story that they were truly resolved enough that the girl and her sister child would be 100% safe with him forever. It felt like a dangerous, potentially abusive in the future situation, and I was not feeling that. So yeah, it did not work for me. And I was so bummed because I had just loved a book by that author, and this one was such a drastic bomb. The next book on my list is Chasing Theo. I, as you probably know, have been binging Ice Planet Barbarians and was trying to find Ice Planet Barbarian-esque books. Chasing Theo was one I tried. It was not great. It had some really great things. It's about this girl who is abducted by aliens and she's rescued, but the aliens that rescue her are like, we can't return you to Earth because people on Earth don't know about us and aliens, but we can bring you to this planet and have you marry this guy. But it's like a short-term marriage, it's not a long-term marriage. You'll be like paired with this guy for however long, and he's kind of a broody soldier, and I don't remember all the details of it, but I remember being so excited for it, and it had a really good start, and I was really enjoying it. And then there was some issues. There were some consent issues. There was some aggression issues. The intimate scenes were really ick for me. And there was some plot things that I didn't care for. And I just wanted a lot more of the Ice Planet Barbarian books and was hoping this was similar, and this could have been a series I really enjoyed because I was really feeling the alien romance, and it just was a miss for me. So I think if consent is less of an issue for you and a little bit more aggressive bedroom scenes is fine with you, that this might work a lot better for you, but it just kind of made me uncomfortable and gave me the ick, and I wanted just the sweet fluff of Ice Planet Barbarians, but I was waiting on an Ice Planet Barbarian book, tried to give this a try, and it didn't work for me. All right, the last book is one that I don't think anybody else on here will probably be particularly interested in or care about, but it was a huge disappointment for me because I'd wanted a book about rats because rats is my current obsession, and this book, while about rats, was not about rats in an interesting or readable way. And that is The Story of Rats. I'd heard about this book from a rat YouTuber. So she is somebody who talks about rats and rat care, and she kind of, I don't think she exactly recommended this book, but she was talking about the book, and I thought, oh, that sounds like a book I need to read. It talks about like how rats live and different aspects of the internal life of a rat. It really wasn't so much. It was a lot of rambling about rats in science experiments. There were some really valuable little pearls, but overall I was very disappointed with the reader experience. It was very rambly, it was very difficult, and I wanted a rat book. I'm hyper obsessed with rats. I just wanted a book about how rats act, and this was more about science experiments on rats, but not in a way that was interesting for what I needed it to be. So yeah, most of the books on this list are just not what I was expecting, and that's where the disappointment comes from. They weren't necessarily bad books. They just weren't what I was looking forward to and what I thought I was getting, and I was bummed. So yeah, if you've read any of these and love them, you can let me know that in the comments. Also, if you had any big disappointments this year, what were they? Did you have a book that you really, really, really wanted to read and you thought was going to be amazing and it just fell short? Tell me about that. Also, if you have any books that are Ice Planet Barbarian-esque, please leave them in the comments. I have also read Artec, and I will not be continuing that series. That's going to be in a different video. But that one also didn't work for me. So the Theo book and that series I didn't do, and Artec I'm not doing. But those, aside from those series, if you have others to recommend that are Ice Planet Barbarian vibes, please do so, because I'm loving Ice Planet Barbarians and I am almost through the series. I'm gonna need more alien books really soon. So leave those in the comments and I will talk to you next time. Please like and subscribe. It's been Jane. Bye. Pictures and patterns put into words that stream across the page.